Good day to all of you! Welcome to my vlog! Before I tackle my chosen topic, which is simple and compound interest, let me introduce myself first. I am Venice N. de la Cruz from the section of ABM 11YA1B under the supervision of Mrs. Rosie or Mita. So, before we go to our main topic, what is an interest? Well, the cost of borrowing money is, in simplest terms, interest. It is the proportion you pay to your lender when you have a credit card balance or take out a loan. However, interest can also be paid to you. Savings accounts and certificates of deposits are two most common ways to earn interest. Next is simple interest. What is simple interest? Simple interest, most commonly referred to as the principal amount, is interest that is simply applied to the initial sum of money borrowed or deposited. No matter how often interest is changed, only the initial sum will be affected. Now, how do we calculate simple interest? We can do it by using these formulas. So, as we can see, I stands for interest, P stands for principal, R stands for rate, and T stands for term of loan. We can translate it or the formulas as interest equals principal amount multiplied by rate multiplied by term of loan. The next one is principal amount is equals to interest multiplied by rate and divided by term of loan. Next is rate is equals to interest multiplied by principal amount and divided by term of loan. The last one, term of loan is equals to interest multiplied by principal amount divided by rate. Now, how do we use these following formulas to perform a solution? Here, we have an example. A 3-year loan of 30,000 pesos is made with 5% simple interest. Find the interest earned. So, for the time, or the first thing we need to do is identify the given values in the problem. So for the time, we have 2 years, or we can write it as T equals 2. For the principal amount, we have 30,000 pesos, and we can write it as P equals 30,000. And lastly, for the rate, we have 5%. And we needed to write it as a decimal. So now, we have 0.05. For us to determine the decimal amount, or how can we change 5% into a decimal form, we must divide it by 100. We can write it as R equals 0.05. Now we can apply the formula we needed. Since we are finding the interest, the formula we are using is interest equals to principal amount multiplied by rate and multiplied by term of loan. Since our principal amount is 30,000, our rate is 0.05 and our term of loan is 3. So once we do the math, the answer is going to be 4,500. So clearly, the interest earned is 4,500 pesos. But what if the principal is what we are finding? Here's an example. An investment earned 5,000 interest after 1 year. The rate was 4%. What is the principal? So first we're going to do is to list down the given values in the problem. So for our interest, we have 2,000. For our rate, we have 0.04. And for the term of loan, we have 1 year. Now, the formula we are going to use, since we are finding the principal, is interest divided by rate and multiplied by term of loan. So first, since 0.04 and is our rate and 10 is our term of loan, we're going to multiply those two. So the answer is going to be 0.4. So now that we have 0.4, we needed to divide it by, or we needed the interest, which is the 2,000 pesos divided by 0.04. So the principal is going to be 5,000. So now that we are done, or now that we know how to find the principal, another example is when we are finding the rate of an interest. So here's another example. Ashley invested 120,000 pesos for 3 years. It earned 12,000 pesos in interest. What is the rate? So we are finding the rate. So first thing to do is list down the given values. For our term of loan, we have 3 years. For the principal amount, we have 120,000 pesos, and for the interest, we have 12,000 pesos. The formula we are going to use is R equals interest divided by principal amount multiplied by term of loan. So our interest is 12,000 and our principal amount is 120,000 pesos. And for our term of loan is 3, since it says there that Ashley invested 120,000 pesos for 3 years. So second thing we need to do is multiply 120,000 to 3. So the answer is going to be 360,000, and of course divide 12,000 to 360,000. So the answer is going to be 0.03, which is our rate. Now that we are done finding the rate, we're going to find the time of an interest. So let's find it by solving this problem. When Kian invests 300,000 pesos at an interest rate of 4%, how long will he need to wait before he earns 50,000 pesos of interest money? So, of course, step 1, list all the given values in the problem. And step 2, since we are finding the term of loan, we're going to use the formula term of loan is equals to interest divided by principal amount and multiplied by rate. Since our interest is 50,000 and our principal amount is 300,000, and for our rate we have 0.04%. So first, of course, second, multiply 300,000 to 0.04. The answer is going to be 12,000, and last is divide 50,000 to 12,000. So the answer is going to be 4 years. So clearly the time needed for Kian to receive a 50,000 pesos of interest money is 4 years. Now that we know how to solve the simple interest, here are some problems that might help you more to understand simple interest. So now that we know simple interest, let's go and know more about compound interest. First, what is compound interest? It is commonly described as interest earned on interest. The interest payments change each period instead of staying fixed. For us to solve problems, we need to know first the meaning of each element that we are going to use to our formulas. So, first, FV for future value or compound amount, P for principal amount or principal loan, R for rate, T for term of loan, and M for the number of interest period in a year, and I for interest. Now that we know all the elements, the formulas we are going to use is gonna be translated as future value equals principal amount, open parenthesis 1 plus rate over number of interest period in a year, and MT as number of period in a year multiplied by term of loan. And the second one, principal amount is equals to future value, open parenthesis 1 plus rate divided by number of interest period in a year, close parenthesis, and negative number of interest period in a year multiplied by term of loan. And for the last one, we have interest is equals to future value minus principal amount. So actually, M means something, or it has meaning. So we have annually, or is meaning is 1, semi-annually, or it means 2, quarterly, which means 4, and monthly, or lastly we have monthly, which is 12. So now that we know all the formulas, let's go to our first example. So it says here, Janine makes a 300,000 pesos initial commitment over a 3-year period. If an investment receives a 10% compounded monthly return after 3 years, determine its value. So just like what we did in the simple interest, we are going to list down all the given value in the problem and determine the formula we're going to use. So the formula we are going to use is the future value. Since it's what we are finding. So for the principal amount, we have 300,000. For the rate, we have 0.1%. And for the number of interest period in a year, we have 1. And for the term of loan, we have 3 years. So we have to list down first the principal amount, which is 300,000. And then 1 plus 0. Next is the rate, which is 0.1 over 1, which is our number of interest period in a year. And then our MT is going to be, of course, M, and then T, our term of loan. So first thing we need to do is multiply 1 and 3, which is our MT. So 1 times 3 is equals to 3. After that, we are left with 300,000, open parenthesis 1 plus 0.1 over 1. So the second thing we need to do is to divide 0.1 to 1. So the answer is going to be 0.1. And we are going to add, since it's written there that plus 1, we are going to add 1. After that, the answer to that is 3.3. We are going to multiply those two. The 300,000 or our principal amount and 3.3. So the answer is going to be 990,000. So that is our future value. Next example is this. Janine makes a 300,000 pesos initial commitment over a 3-year period. If an investment receives a 10% compounded quarterly return after 3 years, determine its value. So, of course, first thing we need to do is list down all the given value. For our principal amount, we have 300,000. For our rate, we have 0.1%. And for the number of interest period in a year, we have 4. Since it says there, quarterly. And for our term of loan, we have 3 years. So the formula we're going to use is the same. And once you do the math, okay, first thing is to multiply 4 and 3. So it's going to be 12. So once we added 1 to 0.025, the answer is going to be 1.025. And then multiply it to 300,000. And we are going to multiply it by 12, which is the subscript. So the answer is going to be 403,466.65. So next example is, how much would James have left in his account after 8 years if he deposits 700,000 pesos and earns 4.5% interest on a quarterly basis? What was the interest earned on the account? So of course, first thing we need to do is list down the given values in the problem. So for our principal amount, we have 700,000. For the rate, we have 0.045. And for the number of interest period in a year, we have 4. And for the term of loan, we have 8 years. So now that we list it as or we evaluated the formula, of course, first thing we need to do is multiply 4, which is the number of interest period in a year, and the 8, which is the term of loan. So the answer, and it is going to be our subscript, is 32. Second thing we need to do is multiply or divide 0.045 to 4. The answer is going to be 0.01125, and if you added 1 plus 1, the answer is going to be 1.01125. So the last thing we need to do is to multiply the 3, which is the 700,000, the 1.0058, and our subscript 32. So our future value is going to be 842,306.67. So now that we know how to solve for the future value, or now that we know how compound interest works, here's some activities that might help you more to understand compound interest. So that's all for today. I hope y'all enjoyed and learned something. I guess it's my time to say my quotation, which is mathematics is not about numbers, equations, computations, or algorithms. It is about understanding. So that's all. Till next time. Bye!